In 1943, when all adults had to sign the loyalty oath, my father said his children were going to be raised in the United States and signed yes, yes. When they started to segregate those who signed no or refused to sign and those who signed yes, our families, which included grandparents and aunts and uncles, requested to be kept together. We were shipped by train to Jerome, Arkansas.
It was real hectic. You know, I was right in the middle of everything. And that was the worst camp, where there were so many dissidents, you know, people that were Kibes, and they didn't like the fact that they were in camp in the first place. Nobody liked it. And so, yeah, fights would break out between the people that wanted, of course there were people that didn't like being in there, so they would fight against the people that were loyal to America.
I don't know how I probably entered yes or no, yes and no, or one question and no on another question. And because of that, I think when I got my clearance, I was only allowed to go to Detroit. I probably should be saying this thing. But so the next day, I took a train to New York from Detroit. So when I got to Grand Central Station, I said, now what do I do? We got there a couple weeks late because a lot of us weren't allowed to, we didn't get clearance from the camp, not only from Topaz, but other camps. There was about a dozen of us were sitting in the dean's admissions office, and I heard him saying to somebody else that these are from the concentration camps, so let's let them in. But when I was in New York, I don't know how they found, well, I guess when I went to the WRA, I took my name down and entered into the data bank, and I got a call to come to the WRA office in Empire State Building at that time. So there was a Army officer there, and I went up there right after school classes with my briefcase with some drawings and bookcases and books. He asked me a few questions. I said, do you still believe in the way I answered? I said, I don't remember how I really didn't. So he asked me a few questions, and I think he realized that what's the point of pulling this guy out of college? Let him finish up.
The minute they let the people leave, they had to find their own work. And then there were Christian people that took us in. You know, they had what they call a hostel. You've heard of hostels? And so the people from Sacramento, my brother's group, they all went to Cleveland. You know, they had groups, you know, of friends. And then they went to Cleveland, and I went to Cleveland because they went to Cleveland.
At first there was a rumor, you know, saying that, you know, why we have to be leaving here. You know, I said, no, they think that the United States government needs a place to house German POWs, and they chose Jerome. And so, couldn't believe it to be true, you know, that we had to move once more. But it happened. You know. We had no say in this matter. You know, you, okay, everybody, clear out your barrack and let's go, kind of a thing, you know. So that's what happened. So whether all of us all went to the same camp, I don't remember. But I do know that the majority of us went to Gila. And Gila had 2 camps. So we were in Camp 1. I worked as a canteen in the office, and there I met a friend, and we became real good friends. In fact, after we relocated, both of us worked in different homes, in Hollywood.
I had gone to New York City to join my sister who was going to school there. And I was only there for about 3 or 4 months when I heard that my mother was ill. So I came back to take care of her. And then we heard that we could go back home to California. So my one more sister, my brother and I came back together to get the place ready for my father and mother to come home to. And that's how we returned. Oh, it was the same, sort of, run down, but it was there, and we had a place to stay.
When people in Hood River learned that we would be returning, there was hate mail. These were hate mail from people from the Midwest. This letter has signatures and says that you are returning to your home in Hood River at your own risk. Now, what would you do if you were a parent? Would you consider that? Well, my parents said, I have ranch there, I have a home there, I have a family. My father, he's a strong one. And I have a family to look after. And I have a few friends. So we will be returning. Please expect us. He wrote to this man. Please expect to see us at whatever date it was. It was in October. And because my father said, and this is where his samurai blood comes in, if you don't make a strong statement, you're nothing. You're lost in the crowd. And so we wondered about people threatening his life, my mother's life, and our friends who were returning. But they said, no, you people go and let us know how it is. So my father said, because he spoke very good English, you could understand his English, so he did that. And then later on, he contacted these other families who were waiting at the border, at Idaho border, Idaho, Oregon border, and they came not all at once, but gradually.
When the war ended, Father found a job working on the railroad in the town of Marshall, Washington, not far from Spokane. We lived in a railroad car with only an outhouse and weekly baths in the washtub. I went to work as a domestic help in a Spokane home, and until a friend in Oakland, California, wrote my parents telling them to move to Oakland and stay at the Oakland Methodist Hostel until housing was found. 1 week later, we were on the train with our few belongings headed for Oakland, California. On our way, we transferred trains in Portland, Oregon, and there we had our first post-war Chinese dinner.
I'm the class of 46, so I think I finished in 45. I was drafted and I was sent to Dayton, Ohio. I was in the United States Army, Air Force. My assignment was to figure out how come the big airplanes that they have for transportation, the front windshield would fog up, so I guess I designed something to keep the windshields clear. And there were also German scientists working there. So we had some fun during lunch.
Gradually, evacuation has been introduced in the schools. So I've been speaking to students about it, and each time I keep emphasizing that you're going to be the voter in a few years. You can't let this happen again, ever.
And of course, you know, we all remember 9/11 and the aftermath of that, and how that affected the Muslim community. It's interesting to, you know, see that really the Japanese Japanese Americans went through that all the way to the ultimate situation, which is like you lost everything, you went to a concentration camp. Not only that, you were drafted from the camps into a war, and you know, young people died, older people lost everything, and then they came from the camps out to rebuild the community. So I think it's a great story. It's a great American story.